Hey guys, welcome back to Bernie2016tv. Thanks for hanging out with us here. I see you guys all in the chat room. Everyone's checking in from their cities. We got Utah, we got Seattle, Connecticut. That's right near me, right next door to me. I'm in Rhode Island actually. And everybody check in if you can. Arkansas is in there. That's good. We're going to go to another guest right now, guys. We want to do a quick interview with somebody. He's going to be joining us, our Bernie2016tv team. His name is Simon Moya-Smith. And he's a Native American, and he's also an activist, an editor, and a reporter. And how you doing tonight, Simon? How you feeling?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Where are you checking in from? What state are you in?
Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, you're in New York. All right. So you're not too far from me. You're over on the East Coast here.
Yeah.
And so how are you feeling about the Bernie Sanders campaign so far?
Well, so far I've noticed it's picking up steam, but we're still waiting as Native Americans to kind of hear him mention us. We will, as Native Americans, we don't always anticipate the presidents, you know, if it's Hillary or Bernie or even the GOP, to really make mention of the Native American. But we're hopeful. You know, there's that diversity list, right? It goes blacks, Latinos, women, gay, and they just kind of stop. They don't really make mention of Native Americans. So we're hoping to hear what his position is on Native American sovereignty. We're excited that he's against the Keystone XL pipeline. We're happy that he's against the racist name of the Washington football team. But we haven't really heard anything from him, of course, about the Indian Child Welfare Act. We haven't really heard about his opinion on Native American sovereignty, and we're waiting to hear from him about Native Lives Matter.
Why do you think it is that not just Bernie, but all candidates seem to leave your people out of the discussion? Is it just that they're not a big factor in the voting, or what do you think it is, or is it just it's not something that's in the news?
No, well, it's multi-parted in the sense that Native Americans are canceled out of the conversation. I mean, we are routinely canceled out of the American conversation. I mean, you can't be the greatest nation in the world if you're guilty of genocide. You know, and if we tell you, if you know the real history behind Thanksgiving, you're going to feel a little guilty celebrating it. I personally don't celebrate the 4th of July. The Declaration of Independence specifically references Native Americans as merciless Indian savages. So there's a lot of elements of the American story that really, you know, makes people feel guilty. I mean, again, you know, for Native Americans, we know this side of the story, which is typically omitted, right? So if you look at a lot of the pundits on television, they're not really talking about Native Americans unless it has to do with mascots and Thanksgiving. We never get an invitation to just sit down and talk about some policy that's going on in D.C. It's like, well, we need an Indian in here to play the Indian role. But I think it's also, you're right, Native Americans make up only 2% of the population in our own country, which is pretty significant when you think about it, right? The indigenous peoples, the first peoples of this continent, are 5.2 million, 2%. We're the minority among the minorities in our own country. So yeah, of course we're not going to make, you know, a big hit in the polls. So that's why they don't come to the reservations that often, in the like not gunning for the Native American vote, because it's so small. There are more people that live in New York City than there are Native Americans in the United States.
That's all. Yeah, that's all stuff that I think is probably news to most of us, you know, and because it's not reported, the candidates don't talk about it. Now, what kind of things are you guys been doing? Like, what have you been doing to try to bring more awareness to this?
To bring more awareness to our existence?
Yeah, and to the point that you want to be part of the, you know, you want a seat at the table, you want to be involved in the issues. You know, have you guys been, what kind of activities have you guys been doing?
Well, I mean, it's the same old story. Like, I mean, I go up to so many people and they find out, you know, if I'm talking to someone and they find out I'm a Native American, I'm a citizen of the Oglala Lakota Nation, you know, they're like, oh, my grandma's cousin's aunt's uncle was Cherokee. I'm Native American too. And yet we have to deal with that in society. So, like, there's so many people that claim to be Native American that aren't Native American. We call them convenient Indians, like the Elizabeth Warrens, the ones that claim to be Native American. But when it comes down to it, they don't know anything about it. They just say they had a grandma with high cheekbones. So we're always trying to winnow out the wannabes, because then, if as a journalist being in the newsroom, you can have a black reporter, Hispanic reporter, you can have a gay reporter, and then there's some guy at the end of the table who claims to be Cherokee but has no connection to the community, can't pitch any stories. And we have to deal with that in politics as well. Again, Elizabeth Warren, people claiming to be Native American that aren't Native American and don't know the issues. I don't know how versed Bernie Sanders is on the Native American issues out west, the guys from the East Coast. So I really hope they would understand that the Native Lives Matter movement, the police brutality in Indian country. I know everybody's familiar with Black Lives Matter. Not a lot of people are familiar with Native Lives Matter, and I'd like to hear Bernie Sanders, say something about it. Native Americans are statistically more likely to die at the hands of cops than even the African American. And that's not widely known. I reported that back in December. Al Jazeera did it like in July. It's one of those things that we're trying to tell people is affecting our communities. Who has the highest dropout rate? The Native Americans. Our women are 2.5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted than women of any other race. All of these things is the American story, but again, it's one of those things. You can't be the greatest nation in the world if you have these Native Americans suffering like this. We have third world poverty on our reservations, no running water, no electricity. In the nation's capital, you have a racist mascot with a moniker that is equally as racist. We're so canceled out of the conversation. I'm just, again, waiting for Bernie Sanders to say anything about Native Americans. Same thing with Hillary Clinton, same with all of them. Yeah, Keystone XL Pipeline, we're totally on the same page there, but there's so many issues that face the Native American community that we're waiting for him and other candidates to talk about.
Well, if any candidate's going to, it's probably going to be Bernie, and I hope that he will listen to your message and that he's going to address it, and I think he'll take it seriously too, because it sounds like those are some very serious issues, and I think you're right. We should definitely be concerned with it just as much as we are for other people. And you're going to be doing a show on Bernie2016 TV, and I imagine you're going to do a lot of discussions about those issues, but what else do you have planned for your show? Are you going to have guests? Are you going to do interviews? What kind of things do you have planned?
Well, we haven't really talked about it, but I mean, obviously, they're going to be the uncomfortable. These are uncomfortable things. I mean, we want to talk about, presidents, the campaign. There's certain presidents that said some pretty awful things and did some pretty awful things. Like Abraham Lincoln killed 38 Native Americans who were just fighting for their inalienable rights, and a lot of people don't know that. I encourage people to look up the Dakota 38. So in the Native American community, Abraham Lincoln is one of the most hated presidents next to Andrew Jackson. Thomas Jefferson said the Native American justified our own extermination. Abraham Lincoln said the only way to kill an Indian is to kill their crops. So he had a campaign to kill our crops. People don't, everybody knows that there's an Indian reservation, but nobody asks what's an Indian reservation. An Indian reservation was originally supposed to be a prison camp. That was the idea, that you just send the Indian there to die. During Japanese internment, what do they do with the Japanese? Well, what are we going to do with them? Put them on Indian reservations. A lot of people don't know that either. After Pearl Harbor, that's what they did, and we already have a fucking prison camp. Put the Indians on it, or put the Japanese with the Indians. So there's a lot of tough issues that people aren't talking about, and I'm hoping people will recognize it. This year is the 125th year since the Wounded Knee Massacre. I would want people like Bernie Sanders to say something about it. 125 years since the United States slaughtered my people. 300 Lakota. 200 of them were women and children. It wasn't a battle, it was a massacre, and then they buried them all in a trench, in a pit, on my right on my reservation in Wounded Knee. And again, 125 years, I would hope somebody like Bernie would say something about it. If he's that progressive, he can take progressive sides with Native Americans. He can call out the ridiculousness of Columbus Day. Those types of things.
I've just learned a whole lot of things. I hope Bernie understands the issues. I hope he learns some things from you, Simon, that maybe he doesn't know either, because, I mean, you just told me a bunch of things that I wasn't even aware of, and I feel bad about that because I try to be aware about all these things, and you've definitely got some things there to talk about, and I'm looking forward to the show that you'll be doing here on Bernie2016 TV. Sure. And is there anything else you want to add?
No, other than, I really hope that people will recognize the Native American of the 21st century. If you're looking at me right now, I'm wearing a shirt just that doesn't have beads or fringe. I don't have long hair. These aren't moccasins. It's like we really want people to look at the indigenous people in the community like the way we are, and that's very diverse. It's like this. I live in Brooklyn. I don't live on a reservation. More than 70% of Native Americans now live in big cities, but our reservation is our home. It's our home. This is our homeland. This is Indian country. Everybody in the United States who's not Native American is a beneficiary of Indian removal. And we all need to address the humility of that situation. And I really hope that, you know, if Bernie Sanders wants to kind of like, you know, take a step out of just the typical approach to politics, he'll address Native American issues as well. We totally understand that unlike the Irish Americans, the Italian Americans, etc., we have a treaty with the United States. We have a piece of paper signed to us from the United States telling us what our land is, etc., but they break treaties all the time. We just hope he'd be willing to talk to us about sovereignty, about our treaty rights, and at the same time, no Keystone XL pipeline, and you know, no more Washington football team name.
And even though he has not addressed any of your issues up to this point, are you still supporting Bernie? Are you on board with what Bernie is doing so far?
Well, I guess that remains to be seen. I mean, I'm of course liberal. I'm a Democrat, but I'm no fan of Hillary at the moment. But I'm also, you know, if I had to go with anybody right now, it would definitely be Bernie. But if he doesn't include Native Americans in his conversations, and especially Native Lives Matter, and you know, sexual abuse in Native American communities, poverty in Native American communities, we're definitely going to treat them as we would treat anybody else, and basically that's just shun them. Because if they're going to shun us, we got to, you know, return the favor. But we want amicable relations and government-to-government amicable relations.
Well, I appreciate you enlightening us, enlightening me, and hopefully your message is going to get through to not just to Bernie, but to all the candidates, and maybe hopefully, you know, both parties as well. And I'm looking forward to watching what you do when you have your show here on Bernie2016 TV. So thanks for checking in with us, Simon. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Take care.
All right. So that was Simon Moya-Smith, guys. He's a Native American activist. He's also an editor and reporter, and he's going to be doing some stuff with us here on Bernie2016tv. And we learned a lot right there. And there's probably a lot of other groups out there just like him that are going to want to be heard from, and they're going to want politicians to think of them as we get ready for the election coming up. And so it's important stuff.
Two sick individuals can produce with residuals. The miracle of purely woven infant souls is crazy. Stated plainly, we see it hazy. Take not for granted the babies, may we pay heed to this cyclical storm. Melt the tip of this cyclical icicles warmth till the bicycle's tires are worn. I scorn no man stand. Naturally we're children of the corn, not of the hamburger, not of the pie. Whoever said adults are educators was a lie. Parents teach without scouting out the outcomes. Our outlooks without doubt, a drought without sun. I only hope I give my son right of way, while the difference he's created for me, night and day. Reconsider who you picture as teachers. It's not about the image, it's about what they teach us. God forbid our kids go to school to learn from fools. The melting pot's already injecting them with the rules. Daughters gotta be Barbies to get in with the cool. Feathers wanna be like fathers that they never knew. I'm not saying every teacher isn't worth their pay. I'm simply saying most of them don't know of colored pain. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, nor can a foreign mind teach our minds old shit. Well, if I don't know my past, then my ass is grass. Same reason lost women sell their ass for cash. Same reason thirsty men trade their cash to tap. What's the haps with the pimps and the Cadillacs? Teens learn from a media that serves them elitist fucks, with no wise folks to preach them up. We consider who you picture as teachers. It's not about the image, it's about what they teach us.
The human mind is like a computer. No matter how efficient it may be, its reliability is only as great as the information fed into it. If it is possible to control the input of the human mind, then no matter how intelligent a person may be, it's entirely possible to program what he will think. It's even possible to program people to laugh at the word conspiracy.